Do you remember me? Do you remember when you could time travel? When you could space travel? When you could immediately heal any ail? When you could fly? Do you remember a time before time? And sometimes you do remember. I was, I don't know, it was like 2011, 2012. I was listening to interviews of a gentleman named Andrew Basiago. He's a lawyer up in Washington State, and he claims to have been part of a project called Project Pegasus, which was a space time travel project nested within the black budget of our deep state military apparatus being run out of the Pentagon. And he says that he actually met Barack Obama back when his name was Barry Soetoro, and that Barack and he had time traveled and space traveled together through these wormholes. And I was intrigued, I love a good yarn. I'm not threatened by information, whether it's accurate or not. I like getting to hear interesting tales like this. So, and I was, here's a guy that, had a pretty active career as a lawyer, well-educated man. And I was surprised because his story never faltered. It was always the same story. And he got interviewed by, like Art Bell and all these various, he went through, I call it the woo circuit. There's a handful of kind of like UFO and conspiracy-based podcasts and radio personalities. And he was kind of like on the woo circuit. And so all of his interviews were getting posted on YouTube, and so I was like just mainlining Andrew Basiago, and I started having these almost like sense memories about kind of when I was a kid. My grandparents lived near a school ground in Pasadena, right off of, I think it was Linda Vista Elementary. And something kind of happened to that school. It kind of became this defunct, it no longer functioned as a school because I think it fell in disrepair. But we used to go there because you could get through the fence, and as kids we would play in the playground. They had a giant field. We'd play football, we'd run around, we'd chase each other, we'd make our own go-karts out of push carts and weird wheelbarrows and shit, and we'd create these vehicles that would just jam down the hills there. And of course they would they would self-destruct upon impact at the bottom. Super dangerous shit. They had giant tires, like tractor tires. I'm talking about giant ones. that we would play around on, and like the steel belts were totally getting exposed, so you could like totally cut yourself on this like, you know, steel that was like sharp steel like poking out of these tires. We would explore the nooks and crannies of this place. My brother thought I died once there. He was like daring me to ride his 10-speed bike. I'd never fucking ridden a 10-speed bike. I was always had like coaster brakes on my little BMX bikes, and I'd never dealt with handbrakes before. And he didn't explain the brakes to me. He was just like, all right, check it out. And I was like hauling ass on the bike, and I thought I was like the fucking coolest dude in the world because I could actually reach the pedals, and I was like, and I couldn't stop, and I rammed into a fence. And from his angle of view, it looked like this pole went through my body. And so he was like coughing up tears when he came up. He was just like, Misha, because he thought that I was dead. I fucking slammed into it. I went through a hedge right into a fence. I mean, I was injured, but I wasn't like fucking dead. I could have really hurt myself. But just weird shit happened there, and I started listening to Andrew Passaggio's story, I started having these sense memories that something more occurred on that campus. Something like there was a program there, a secret program, whether it was like tunnels or and I remember as a kid there was a lot of duck and cover drills. It wasn't, like full cold. It was Cold War, but it wasn't like 50s and 60s. It was more like 70s Cold War. And a lot of these institutions, these schools, seemed like, and I think it's still this way, it seems like they have a component of vetting kids with special talents, whether it's psychic or extrasensory, because special kids are born all the time, that come to this place with more talents than the average bear. And I think schools are kind of like the first sort of vetting ground for this kind of thing. And so listening to those Andrew Passaggio and being on that and having all these sense memories about being on that campus, something started to swirl around in my psyche, like almost like some deep memories. And I couldn't put my finger on what they were. I was working on Anomalisa, and I got to meet Charlie Kaufman, the writer-director. And he's an idol of mine. When I saw, whatever, Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, I was blown away. Here's this like program where they're going in and they're monkeying around with memories. It kind of touched a similar kind of deep notion within me that I was somehow part of something like this. Maybe in a past life, or maybe as a child, or maybe I just rubbed shoulders with people that were in these programs. But I met him, Duke, the director, was co-directing with Charlie. And Duke was on the floor directing all the animation stuff. But I was working on a scene. The main character, was his name Michael or whatever, was at the podium giving a speech to an audience. And this is back when it was a Kickstarter. And Rosa, the producer, had told all the animators, the quota on this is 10 seconds a day. And we were doing everything on twos. It was all wire armatures. And anyway, so Charlie Kaufman is getting a tour of the facility, and Duke is sort of giving him this tour. And the two of them come in, and I'm in the middle of a shot, and they look at my shot so far. And Duke starts giving me notes on the performance. And I'm giving him a little pushback. He's like, yeah, the arm movement here looks a little fast to me. And I was like, okay, I'm just going for naturalism. He's like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm like, well, look at my hand right now. I'm naturally moving my hand fast, gesticulating in a gesture of fast movement. And in that moment, Charlie Kaufman heard what I was saying, and he sided with me. He's like, I think Misha might be right on this. I like the movement of the hand. It feels natural. And I don't think Duke appreciated being kind of outvoted. Like, he was like, flexing a little, and sort of lost his the upper hand in the dynamic. Anyway, that aside, whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. I don't think my animation was particularly very good on that movie, because I wish I had joined that movie later when the quotas came way down to like 2 seconds a day and everything was ball and socket, and it was treated more like a movie. When we first started, it was like, this is a low budget fucking thing that we're lucky to be here to do. Let's just pound it out. It was a very different dynamic later on when they showed some footage to some investors and they got some finishing funds, and suddenly it went from a kind of a TV schedule to like a movie schedule. And the work suddenly got better, and they brought on more experienced sort of feature animators, and I felt like those people got kind of more glory, whereas we were accommodating kind of a broken system. Doesn't matter. But I suddenly found myself walking down the hall. I was on my way to the bathroom, and Charlie Kaufman peeled out of one of the stages, and he was walking towards the office upstairs. And he and I started walking side by side, and I said, "It's such an honor to meet you, Mr. Kaufman. I really, really love your work, especially Schenectady, New York. That's something about that movie. I feel like you changed the language of film. The way you edited that, it was like you were in a dream. You would bring the diegetic sounds of the next scene into the scene you're in. I didn't know where or when I was during that movie. And he was... I think my comments were thoughtful enough that he was flattered. And he was like, "Thank you." And I said, "Do you know about the work of Andrew Basaggio?" And he goes, "No." I said, "He claims to have been part of a time travel program. And if you punch his name into YouTube, you can watch some of his interviews. But he claims to have traveled to Mars and been, like, he and his father, or he was one of several children that, were, like teleported from one side of the country to the other 2 months into the future and then back. Or maybe it was 2 months into the past and back. But it's interesting because I just got the sense, and Charlie Kaufman, God, this guy is fucking pissing me off. He's dancing around in the street and cars are about to hit him. Sorry, it's so distracting. It's so annoying. Anyway, Charlie Kaufman, I think heard what I was saying. He was intrigued. I don't know if he ever, watched any Andrew Passaggio interviews after that. I doubt it. But, it was... the connective tissue was pretty strong between listening to these interviews, having these sense memories, meeting Charlie Kaufman, being affected by his films that dealt with time and space displacement, dilation, teleportation, almost like a natural form of time travel through just consciousness. Watch. I would urge everybody to listen to an interview of Andrew Passaggio. Watch Schenectady, New York, or Synecdoche, New York. I don't know how to pronounce it. And just see what bubbles up. See if something starts to kind of surface in your psyche. That's all I got. I don't know. It's a weird thread. Anyway, I'll shut up.